Or will they get more? How will they get it? And you have Australia, and Australia is really being hurt hard right now. Of course, we talked about the fuel shortages there, but one farmer has gone a bit viral in Australia for talking about how devastating and how he's trying to really paint a picture. This clip is 8 minutes. I'm just going to show you a few seconds of it. You can seek it out on your own, but just want to set the tone of what he's sort of complaining about the politicians in the capital about how bad things are about to get. Just listen a few seconds of this.
Well, g'day. Here we go again. Sorry about the usual intro. Standing here in front of the centre pivot. You see the diesel tank, everything behind me. The crop you see behind me is a maize crop. This is mainly targeted at our clowns in Canberra, Macquarie Street, and particularly Labor and the coalition, particularly, obviously Matt Canavan, his attack on us and things like that. Yes, here I'm a One Nation hat and got the One Nation stubby hole. Yeah,
so there he goes. There he goes on to really explain and lay out just how difficult it is for farmers in Australia right now, but of course around the world. So we wanted to talk about that today. AJ Richards is the founder of From the Farm. He has been working to prevent famine in America for the last 6 years, and I think we really started to see some pieces of that when the whole fake COVID pandemic unfolded. And you got to see sort of the trial run of like what a possible famine actually might look like. AJ, welcome to the show. Great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So I'm sure you've been watching this very, very closely, not just over the past 3 weeks as this war has unfolded, but for years. What started to concern you maybe before this war broke out, that our system, I think that's what the thing I want to hit on too, is that our system was already incredibly fragile, right? Before this, you add in an Iranian war on top of it. Can you talk about specifically, I guess, in the United States, what you were seeing ahead of time?
Yeah, so in my family are sixth-generation ranchers from southern Utah, northern Arizona, and we were selling beef direct to consumer in 2019. And then when COVID hit, we called our local processor to get our next round of livestock scheduled for processing so we could feed our customers. And the disruption of COVID and what happened in the large-scale slaughterhouses caused a cascading effect that backed up our smaller local processors. So when we called to get our next round of processing, they told us, yeah, we can get you in a year and a half. Now, for context, a week or two prior to that moment, we would call and say, hey, we have 5, when can we get them in? And it was literally within a week or two. And so when COVID hit and disrupted the entire supply chain, it became very clear that our supply chain has become so degraded that most of us don't even know this is happening. Ultimately, we had to shut down that business because we couldn't get consistent processing to feed the customers that we were already serving. So that was sort of the first big, aha moment that we're in trouble. Ranchers and farmers have been screaming about this across the country for a long time, but we didn't really start seeing the effects of that until COVID hit, and it just became really clear we've got some real work to do in this country to get us back on track.
What are the mechanisms that broke down? What do you think, where were the failure points?
Yeah, there's a few. And first of all, the large-scale corporate-owned slaughterhouses, 4 companies control 85% of the meat we consume, and there's roughly 30 slaughterhouses that process 80% of the meat we consume in our entire nation. So they're processing around 6,000 plus head of livestock a day. So when COVID hit and those folks couldn't come to work and process, they weren't doing the processing. And our system is built so efficiently for just-in-time delivery that if you're processing 6,000 head of cattle today, you've got 6,000 more coming tomorrow and the next day and the next day and so on. Well, when that jam started, you had this backup in the finishing lots all the way down, finishing lots where they fatten the cattle and get them ready for processing. You had that cascading effect all the way down to folks that were ready to deliver, and now feeding livestock is a lot more expensive when they're ready to be processed than just processing and put in the freezer. So that was the first implication, was just this breakdown in our supply chain where the processing happens because of that consolidation. Then a year later, folks remember sometime around 2021, they started limiting the meat you could buy again. And that time it was because JBS got hacked and had an $11 million ransom they had to pay, but they were locked out of their system for a I think it was like a week or something like that. And so they couldn't process again for an entire week across, their supply chain. And so that was continuing to cause problems for our system. Even today, there's parts of our country where the small processors are backed up 6-9 months. Even today, 6 years post-COVID.
That's insane. Here's a super chat from the Bob, Go Madmen. He says, the oil strain is happening at the same time California's refineries are going offline. The West Coast is going to be rough. Obviously, you're on the western part of the country right now. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, if this keeps going, everything in this country, there's no such thing as local anymore, at least on a scale that matters, right? So everything we do depends on trucking. It's been pretty well known for many folks that pay attention to this that in any given town or city, your grocery stores have 3 days of food. That's without panic buying. And so if the trucks aren't coming in because they can't get fuel, or even if they can get fuel for, prioritizing those systems, the cost for that is going to increase the cost of the goods they're hauling. And then that goes all the way downstream to manufacturing new tractors or any other aspect that's necessary. All of those parts and pieces and things that we're moving around using fuel, they're going to cost more because it costs more to get it there.
I hate to be, I am a conspiracy theorist, but that just means I'm a 6-month spoiler alert kind of guy. A friend of the show, David Icke, has been saying you need to step back from what's happening in Iran. You need to see the larger picture here, which is they're intentionally doing this, that intentional scarcity, so they can, as you pointed out, during COVID, prevent us from eating meat, right? Mm-hmm. Move us to like an all-electric future, reduce our dependency on farms, take away this land, consolidate the consolidation control. Is he wrong or is he right?
Yeah, he's got a lot of really valid points there. We did see all of that happening and still perpetuating today through different organizations. Like in the West, one of the big things we're dealing with is the loss of grazing land for our cow-calf ranchers. That means those particular ranchers have mama cows that have the babies, and that feeds into the downstream pipeline. But public land grazing, which is like your Bureau of Land Management from the Department of Interior or your Forest Service from USDA, state trust land, these kinds of things, ranchers have a lease on those to raise their cows. But you get these environmental ENGOs that come in and they cause havoc, and they'll sue and settle to reduce the number of livestock that a rancher can produce on those lands. In the 1935 before the Taylor Grazing Act, we had 18 million what they call AUMs, animal units a month. That means a mama cow and a baby cow is considered one AUM. So in 1935 we had 18 million in the West. Today we have 8 million because the ranchers are being squeezed at every turn. That's our food supply. Livestock on public land is what refertilizes the soil so that we have grass. Well, that's being reduced, so we're seeing desertification happening in the West because of the lack of ruminating animals. Wildfires are out of control because of the reduction of grazing and logging, so we have these very unhealthy forests that are tinderboxes ready to explode. Without the grass, it also breaks up what we call what's your local water cycles. About 40% of your moisture is supposed to come naturally from local water cycles, which is created by grass and vegetation. That's all going away because of these fights that ranchers have been in and largely unheard for decades.
That's unbelievable. It's not unbelievable at all. We friend of the show, Dane Wigington, of course, from geoengineeringwatch.org. He's been saying, have you seen what's happened to these farms? Have you seen what's happening to this land? Just the desertification of this land, the trees that are just falling apart and just collapsing. And, you see what's happening with the spraying in the skies. Has the spraying in the skies affected you at your farms?
In some areas. I just watched a woman today giving a testimony in South Carolina where she has a farm and she's been monitoring. She's an animal specialist in a local farming group, so she's knowledgeable in this, and she said she's lost 80% of her butterflies just in the last 3 years because she monitored those things. She was trying to create a habitat for the monarch and her neighbors do bees, and they've seen significant reduction in their bees around their farm. And this was all focused on atmospheric aerosol sprays as the cause.
That's unbelievable. I know this morning I went out here in Colorado and 3 crisscrossing patterns right in the sky. And then within about 20 minutes, I posted this on Twitter. Within about 20 minutes, the entire area where those had just been sprayed were fully clouded, covering it to keep the sun out, because we want to dim everything. It's so deeply troubling. I can't, it just disheartens me. Because how are we allowing this to happen? How are we allowing this to happen, to go from 18 million animals in the 30s to a population that's exploded in the United States, and now we have 8 million?
That's right. Yeah, we're at the lowest herd numbers since 1950s, but we've got 320 million people to feed. So this to me, this is why it's been my focus. All these other things that they do matter. And, I always say, pick a hill to die on, because there's plenty, and somebody needs you to stand shoulder to shoulder with them. But quite frankly, none of those hills matter if you're starving. It really doesn't. Like, famine is the game. It's the game over. It's the checkmate. And so we need to back our family farms and ranches in this nation, give the people who want to become farmers and ranchers a reason to take that on and get into it. One of the good things that came from COVID, people woke up, and one of the fastest growing movements in the nation is homesteading. I mean,
Yes.
there's so many people that are trying to get the heck out of the city or the suburb, get on a small piece of land, and primarily raise food for their own families, but that often leads to increasing the production so they can sell to their neighbors. But this will follow. This is what I'm trying to get people to understand. Consumers have all the power here. If they choose where they're spending their dollar, they're going to drive a new market. And that's why I believe that direct-to-consumer needs to be the future of our agriculture, so it gives a reason for more people to get back into it. And also, direct-to-consumer means they get the full retail dollar. Because currently in this system, in the captured corporate system, ranchers, for example, only earn about 9 to 14 cents on the dollar. And yet they're the ones doing all the primary work to get it to your plate, and they're getting such a small piece of that. But if you go right to the farmer and rancher and you shake the hand that feeds you, they get the full retail dollar. That's stability for them, and we as the consumers can make those choices so that we can help them.
So I just want to point out, I have a couple more questions for you here, but you built this online platform, basically almost like, I guess you could describe it like an Airbnb for local produce and farms, to be able to connect people with their local ranchers, so people can go right to their ranchers. We've got, 30,000 people watching us live right now across all of our platforms. I would love for people to go to your website and not collapse the website, not all
Yeah.
but
You might do that. We're pretty new.
there, and maybe bookmark it for later if it does get, we have 30,000 people we're sending there right now to go check it out.
Right.
But this is an important American moment, I think, for people to be able to connect with their where can people go to learn more about this?
Yeah, fromthefarm.org is the website. And we built this entirely. We had to rethink the whole food system. The current food system is, we think about the farmers last. How do I get my money? That's the corporate mentality. And so we had to go into something. If we're going to create